Is Pokemon's fifth movie any good for a Pokemon movie? We're about to find out. Today we'll be recapping and reviewing each act of Pokemon Heroes, and at the end we'll place it on our tier list, as part of our ongoing search for the best and worst Pokemon movies. I'm Gingy Dave, and we overanalyze media you never thought to ask about. But what makes a good Pokemon movie? We'll be judging the story itself, of course, how it shows the story, and how well it captures the heart of the Pokemon world. So let's get right into the action of this movie. Our movie Sorry, this is a prop phone. I put it here specifically to be like a foreground pinning point of the shot. It's not plugged in or anything. I'm sure it's fine. Our movie begins with an introduction to our villains, Annie and Oakley, two members of the notorious gang, Team Rocket, and one of them, the member of the HCHD-YHW, or the Holy Crap, How Does Your Hair Work group. The thieves are robbing a library, and checking out a book in the middle of the day is beneath them. As they search for information about a jewel known as the Soul Dew, they are able to find information on this precious jewel in what looks like an ancient book, which also gives information in regards to the defense mechanism of Altamar, which is generally known as the DMA, which would need the Soul Dew to function. Annie and Oakley leave their calling card, a rose, as well as a literal card with lipstick stain, and use their getaway vehicle and set course to their new destination. As an aside for aspiring villains, leaving your calling card is the dumbest thing you can do, and you can do better. Do you think they're calling about my car's extended warranty? I'm just gonna let it ring. I don't own a car. We then cut to our heroes in Altamar, as Ash and Misty have joined the Tour de Altamar, an aquatic Pokemon-pulled chariot race that takes place once a year in this Venice look-alike town. Brock cheers from the sidelines and promptly gets distracted by a woman as per tradition. As the race begins, it becomes clear that the three main competitors are Ash and his Totodile, Misty with her Corsola, and last year's reigning champion Ross with his Wailmer. Ash suddenly loses his footing and finds himself in the canal and loses the lead that he had. Ash and Pikachu, who had been on Ash's shoulder, get back on their chariot when a mysterious, invisible Pokemon takes the reins and starts pulling the team at an accelerated rate. Ash believes that Totodile has suddenly got a burst of speed and is elated and soon catches up to the leaders. However, a second unknown, invisible Pokemon also starts pulling on the reins and takes Ash and Pikachu in a whole other direction, which eventually leads them to crashing back on land. Misty and Ross finish the race, and Misty is claimed the winner and is given a medal as a prize. The medal has the symbol of the Guardians of Altamar, which is Latios and Latios, the guardian Pokemon of the town. Ross comments that no one has seen the Guardians for a long time, as the town has long been peaceful. Annie and Oakley are now also shown in Altamar, looking for signs of Latios and Latios, as the ancient book mentioned that they were related to the Soul Dew. Oakley is using a special device to find them, and as it turns out, the Guardians are able to disguise themselves into anything. Almost immediately, the machine reveals that one of the girls that's just walking by is actually the legendary Latios, and the animation of it just casually bobbing vertically is permanently scarred into my long-term memory. And I have to look at this. We cut back to our heroes, who are now tracking down an ice cream shop as Pikachu gets separated from the group to go to a water pump. Ash follows when he is encountered by Latios in disguise. They share a moment together. It's kind of weird, before Latios runs off into the alley, and Ash just honestly shrugs it off, which is probably for the best. It it was a moment, if you know. Annie and Oakley are able to confront the hidden Pokemon, tell her how tacky her clothes are, and start attacking it with their Espeon Psychic attack and restricting her with their Ariados' webbing. Honestly, this scene initially struck me as a bit of a brutal moment, mostly because it's just they're attacking someone that looks like a person. And it's just, I know that we see Ash get hit and Team Rocket get attacked all the time, but it's different when it felt more brutal than I usually anticipate from a Pokemon movie. Ash and Pikachu stumble onto the scene and confront Annie and Oakley, and after freeing the Latias and getting attacked by their Pokemon, Ash tells Pikachu to attack back and electrocute the gang and the president of the Extui, which lands Annie in the water, and, like, her outfit is all, like, wet and stuff. And she's, like, super bummed, so she sends her Pokemon to get Ash. Latias leads Ash through the back alleyway's labyrinthian-like structure and also 3D imaging, like, it's weird. We'll talk about it more. It's so out of place and it takes such a long amount of time. And eventually they get back to where they started. Latias vanishes and Ash is left wondering what happened as Misty and Brock find their once missing friends. They let him know that he missed out on ice cream and that it's his fault. True. We're then taken to Altamar Museum, headed by the curator Lorenzo. He introduces the group to the skeletal remains of a Kabutops and an Aerodactyl, and are also introduced to the DMA, or Defense Mechanism of Altamar, for those of you who don't remember. Here we learned that long ago, an evil Pokemon trainer used the fossil Pokemon to terrorize the city, but the original Latios used his powers to drown the Pokemon. Absolutely metal. And why Altamar no longer has streets but canals. Ash notices the girl from before, but with a white beret, and immediately starts pursuing her and leaves everyone behind. Annie and Oakley are spying on Ash as this is happening, as well as with their spy camera robots, which, as an aside, we'll talk about it more, these robots look very similar to one of Da Vinci Machines. And I think that's just such a fantastic little detail. It makes me happy. Ash catches up to the girl, and she flat out tells him that she doesn't know him. After losing track of her because she's trying to get away from this creepy guy, Ash finds her again, without the white beret, and we get another small alleyway sequence before running into a brick wall, literally. And so ends Act 1. So let's go into the actual I'm just gonna... Hello? Yeah, no, I'm sorry for hanging up on... Yeah. No, this is Gingy Dave. Are you really the Pokemon Company? How did you know I was doing a Pokemon review on Latios and the Latios movies? You know everything? About everything? Sorry, what? What do you mean you don't want me to do this review? What do you mean it gets creepy at the end of the movie? No, I am a reviewer. This is what I do. Okay, I'll think about it. Yeah, I'll think. Sorry, So let's do a quick review of at least the Act 1 of this movie. So far, I'd say so good. We have a couple of things going on. We have Annie and Oakley, who just seem like a better, more athletic version of our regular Team Rocket squad. They seem genuinely greedy, which is good for a gang of, like, thieves. So, points there. I do think that you also have, they're just catty. Right now, they don't seem very threatening. I do enjoy that they're just kind of, even in broad daylight, they're attacking someone. I really like the scenery of this movie, and especially, like, it is based off of Venice, clearly Venice, right? And these beautiful structures and architecture, they really did nail. They had the inspiration, and that inspiration was really good, visually very pleasing. Man, the little camera robot, I just want to show you again. The little camera robot really looks like one of Leonardo da Vinci's old machines that he would make. Like, he has a couple of drafts of things that we've seen before, and this just, it hits right. It feels right within the context of the movie. I'm really, again, this is just a world building scenario. This is things that you're able to see in a movie that, as far as an animation goes, you should do stuff like this, where this is so out of the box. This is not something that would naturally occur unless you went through the history of Venice and you went through the history of just this area specifically that you are that you're creating the movie around. So props, props. There are a couple of sequences in this movie. I'm just going to specifically talk about this alleyway sequence. So, when you are making an animated movie, you have a couple of things that are going against you. One of them is budget, and that's probably your biggest one. And during this animation time period, one of the greatest ways to save money on hand-drawn animation is to go into 3D animation. And in a lot of these previous Pokemon movies, we've seen generally the big bad, or this, it's generally a Deus Ex, the Machina, or the villain's Machina. And Deus Ex Machina means God of the Machine. It was a Greek idea where you would do this giant spectacle at the very end that either saves someone or does something. It doesn't necessarily mean like, it has a different idea nowadays because it's based off of like, oh, the gods save everyone and the plot ends, and we more related to that. But it used to mean, in its initial idea of it, it was a big showmanship. And so the big showmanship in these Pokemon movies have been the 3D animations. So we get to this alleyway, and this alleyway is 3D animated because the idea of running through an alleyway when you're animating and you're trying to do this camera pan, right? And it's all this tricky stuff that depth does, is really hard to draw. So what did they do? They 3D animated it. And here's my guess, is once you start 3D animating something, you're going to want to use it a lot. They use the alleyway labyrinth quite a bit. They stay on the shot for a really long time. Nothing is happening. You don't even get to see the characters running through it because, again, they would be drawing 2D characters running through a three-dimensional space. So it's it feels like a long waste of time. Generally, I would say that this is the spot where a Ma moment would happen. If you don't know what Ma is, I have a video that I talk about what Ma is in storytelling. This would probably be a good instance of it, a breath moment. But because there's nothing fun to look at, there's no character development, there's no, the magic that is this movie, it's an alleyway, it super misses the mark, at least for me. At this point of the movie, the theme, or the big question that the movie is trying to ask you, what are we trying to learn today, has not been clear. We have a villain who's after a gem, but how they're after the gem is not really very poignant. We don't really know what the main character's lesson is supposed to be as of right now. And later on in Act 2, I'm going to talk about what I think the theme is later, but I want to stay in this bit of unrest right now that I don't think they've nailed how to communicate the theme, at least in the beginning. But for sure in Act 2, I think I have a general idea of what their hope the big question is to convey. Oh, before I forget, let's put this on the tier list right now. Pokemon Heroes, in the beginning, at least in Act 1, hasn't specifically grabbed my attention as much as I like to. There's some fantastic parts. I think the water chariot races are super cool. I like the idea of, it's a little bit of a children's detective mystery, but it's fun. We're playing, we're having a good time. It just doesn't hit me the same way as I would like it to. We'll see more in Act 2. But as of right now, in Act 1, as Gingy Dave, I'm going to give this right now a C tier. It hasn't really grabbed me how I expected so far. Some amazing, honestly, these past 4 Pokemon movies have been really good. It just hasn't grabbed me the way I would like it to. So right now I'm going to put it into C tier. And we'll see where it goes from there. So, let's start going into the synopsis of Act 2. As Ash passes through this brick wall, we find him and Pikachu in the secret garden, and we see him stumble upon Girlia swinging on, a swing. Suddenly Lottie... So sorry, it's the Pokemon. Yeah, hello? No, I am going to do the review. You give me... how many Monster Energy drinks? How did you know I liked Monster Energy drinks? Yeah, I'm not gonna take, no. I really do want to review this movie. I understand that the last part is a little bit weird for... You would give me a Typhlosion plushie? No, Typhlosion's like my favorite freaking Pokemon, dude. No, 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 I'm going to do the review. No, that's a really good offer. No, I didn't think about money. No, I'm quite poor. No, that would be nice. I like money. Okay, no, I'm doing the review. I don't care that you're uncomfortable with the last scene. It needs to be talked about, and you're you're just gonna have to. You can't stop me. So where were we? We left off at Latios swinging on the swing thing. Suddenly, Latios, who is still invisible, attacks Ash and is only stopped by Girlios stepping in between the two. Latios reveals itself now and is also followed by the girl in the white beret. Confusion overflows Ash's 10-year-old mind, and the next few minutes of the movie is letting Ash know that the real girl is Bianca, and the one that he knows is Latios in disguise, which is done by Latios pushing Ash onto the swing and transforming itself mid-swing. Lorenzo also appears, turning out to be Bianca's grandfather and keeper of the garden. This is also the time we are introduced to sight sharing, Latios' special ability, which allows someone to see through his eyes. Not in an empath kind of way, I mean in the literal sense of the word. After the bit of fun and games is over, Lorenzo tells Ash the story that the Latios that saved Altamar was these two Pokemon's father. And when he drowned the fossil Pokemon absolutely metal, that he sacrificed himself to do so, leaving the current Latios and Latios orphaned. Lorenzo then shows Ash the Soul Dew, the literal manifestation of Papa Latios' soul. He also warns Ash that the Soul Dew must be kept a secret and not to be taken out of the pool of water that it is in, as it has the power to destroy Altamar itself. Ash agrees to keep it hidden, and as it is getting late, is led out of the garden, which makes Latios upset that playtime is over. Bianca takes Ash back to where he is staying, through the secret entrance in Lorenzo's workshop, and Ash asks on what happened with the two villains earlier that day. Bianca doesn't know what Ash is talking about, and they both have the realization that it was Latios who was in danger at that time, and that is no good. We cut to it being night now, and Annie and Oakley are sneaking around the rooftops as they are... Oh my... What? No, you can't threaten me. You were just about to bribe me. You think I'm going to back down now that you're threatening me? We cut to it being night now, and Annie and Oakley are sneaking through the rooftops as they are trying to find entrance to the secret garden. The robot cameras were able to follow Ash inside earlier that day. We then get to look into Lorenzo's workshop as he's making gondolas. This man has no less than 3 jobs at this point. As Annie's Espeon waltzes in, Lorenzo greets the Pokemon before Espeon uses Psychic and takes down the old man. This is really, really creepy to me because this is something that you would just hear on the internet. Like a bunch of older people just kind of talk about, Pokemon, if they just had just the inkling could destroy half of humanity. And we get this moment where Espeon, through provocation of her trainer, that is able to greatly hurt this old man. And there is nothing that he could do to stop this. It's a psychic attack. People are just, you can't stop that mental, like a mental attack. This part for real creeped me out a bit when I was watching it. Annie and Oakley are able to find the entrance to the secret garden and are swiftly under fire by Latios. With the help of their super spy glasses, they're able to see their invisible opponents. They are able to hit Latios with an attack and go for another before Latios jumps in and takes the blow for his sister. This fight sequence is brutal to watch, honestly, as the villains continuously try to attack Latios, but Latios consistently gets out of its binds and takes the impact for his sister. It's gritty, especially for a Pokemon movie, but dang, it gets its point across so well. Latios is able to keep Annie and Oakley at bay long enough for Latios to escape. The villains then grab the Soul Dew from the pool and find more information about the DMA on some tiles in the garden, specifically on how to operate the machine. Lorenzo wakes up with the help of Bianca. What? You would do what? They're getting desperate. They're talking about doing like a smear campaign on Typhlosion. What a ridiculous idea. That would hurt them more. That's dumb. Lorenzo wakes up from the help of Bianca and heads for the Soul Dew, which they find stolen. Panicked, they run towards the museum, but it's too late, as Oakley and Annie have already made it there. The gang throws Latias onto a pedestal, and with oscillating rings, drains his energy to power the machine. Lorenzo and Bianca finally make it, only to be quickly beaten by Espeon and Ariados. Oakley finds the control panel now accessible, and places the Soul Dew in its proper place, activating the machine. Now, at the Pokemon Center, Latias finds our group of heroes, and after some explaining and transforming, Brock and Misty are now informed of what's going on. Suddenly, Latias receives a sight share from Latios and makes it a group call for everyone in the room. The sight share shows Annie and Oakley staring up at the DMA, the captured Lorenzo and Bianca, as well as the DMA bringing back to life Kabutops and Aerodactyl, the previously fossilized Pokemon, and are ordered to find and capture Latias. The vision ends, and our heroes get ready to head out. Before they are able to, the DMA is used to put the city in a prison of sorts by producing from seemingly nothing, honestly, giant iron bars and gates. Ash, Pikachu, and Latias are able to get out of the room before it goes into a complete lockdown and head for the museum, leaving Brock and Misty behind. As they head off, they are attacked by Aerodactyl, who is able to slow them down and almost finish off Ash. Latias saves Ash from drowning, and by some luck, find a water chariot and uses it to take off. Brock and Misty, who have been slowed down by the iron bars, send out Crobat, Politoed, and Corsola in hopes that they are able to aid Ash. They promptly do help, in fact, as they find themselves being helpful in a battle that Ash found himself in with Kabutops, who has been hunting him down. Ash, Pikachu, and Latias are able to go near the museum thanks to Kabutops being stalled, but before they can head in, Oakley, who is controlling the DMA now, sends in a tidal wave from the very ground. Latias is able to disperse it with a psychic-infused attack, and she and Ash are able to make it into the museum. So, Act 2, I think, really buttons up some questions and potential ideas that needed to be fleshed out, probably more in the beginning, but we got them here. I had an epiphany watching this movie for the second time. The main character is not Ash and gang, which seems obvious because all the other movies do this. The main character of this movie is Latias, and Latias is going through a bit of a character development throughout this whole movie, and it hit me when I realized that Latios is supposed to be the mentor. He's the older brother, he's the one who's teaching Latias the ropes, and Latias is portrayed as being immature. And when I first watched it, I thought Latias was being portrayed as childish, which I think is also probably in tandem with this idea of immaturity. It's not seen as a good thing. It's seen as something that needs to change for Latias to become a better version of itself. And it didn't hit me until I saw the second time over that battle between Latios, and Espeon and Ariados, where Latios is continuously getting attacked by Latias, like taking the blows for Latias, that it hit me that he is the epitome of what a hero should be. He is taking the blows for someone else. He is purposely putting himself in harm's way so that his sister doesn't get hurt. And the sister, the Latias character, is kind of meandering, and it's childish, and it's not really thinking, and it's bringing people into the secret garden when it probably shouldn't, and it's a child, and it wants to play on the swings, and Latios is strict, and he's smart, and he thinks things through, and at the end of the day, he's willing to sacrifice himself for others. And that's the idea. The question of the movie is, how do you become, or what is a hero, as of course the title of the movie presents itself to be. And right now it's asking, in essence, that answer could potentially be to sacrifice for someone, to sacrifice for another. And it really, the first time I watched this movie, I was going to do a review on it the first time. I was much harsher on this movie because I didn't see, like, it didn't make sense to me. And I don't, if I'm honest, I don't think the movie does a good job showing you that. I think it focuses more on every other character in much more detail and much more depth than Latios and Latios, because they're the ones who grow. They're the ones who have the character development. I don't think Ash does. I don't think Pikachu does. I don't think any of the other crew do. I don't think Bianca or Lorenzo or whatever. The people who change is Latios. Man, when that hit me, I was like, oh, this movie's becomes really cool because Annie and Oakley become the foil for that. And they're not sacrificial, they're greedy. And that's kind of where the movie is trying to take itself, which is they're not being sacrificial for one another. They're doing the opposite, which is they're trying to be self-fulfilling, to take away from others to get what they want. It's the essence of a villain, to take versus to give. So this movie, honestly, when put into that lens, is pretty good. With that being said, I don't know if this is because it's the English dub, and I'm running into this issue, and you fabulous people are commenting on this, which is the Japanese, obviously original, versus the English dub are very, very different. We are reviewing the English dub, though, and Latias and Latios talk through the whole thing. I am not joking. It is an epidemic of them just going, I just watch this scene. This is an unedited account of them talking about the soul dew. Listen to this.
Shows how the soul dew is used to power it.
Hey, where is the soul dew?
Okay, now you think of that, but through the whole movie. Like, I'm watching this with some friends, and we like, at some point of time, the first time we watched it, we're just going, oh, oh, ah, ah. You can't get it out of your head. It's maddening. It's so bad. And I think it really detracts from the idea that this is, honestly, like, it has the bones of a good movie. The story itself, I think, is actually pretty splendid, but how they show the story is not, it's not the same. It's not the same depth as the story genuinely needs it to be. There is also another thing I need to talk about, which is they are for sure pushing a little bit, and it feels weird, of some sort of relationship between Latios and Ash. And it could, again, it could be the English version versus the Japanese dub, but there's some weird moments, like the swing scene. There's this weird moment in Act 1 where they're looking at each other. There's a couple of instances where they're implying something. And honestly, the implication is not really in the... like, it's not good. It's weird. It feels weird. Also have to say is that going back to the showing part of this movie, there's some instances where things should be a problem for potentially a little bit longer. They really build up this idea of Annie and Oakley, when they have control of the DMA, they send a tidal wave to attack Ash and Latias. And it's kind of their last defense before they get in the room. And they're really building it up, and it's almost immediately taken care of. They're building up for something in Act 3. Totally understand. It just doesn't hit the way you want it to hit. And honestly, it's really a shame, because I think parts of this movie could potentially be really good. I like the idea of a sacrificial hero, and specifically this idea of, like, getting past immaturity to become a hero is, I think, a really good story, and potentially has a lot of depth that you could go into. The movie isn't showing that, and it's not showing it in the way that is understandable, at least in the first watch. I had to watch it for real twice to even come to that notion. And that could be a me thing, totally could be. I would like to say, though, that I think you could have made a stronger implication, a stronger case to show that it's Latios and Latios are the heroes versus me trying to figure it out. I want to say the filming and how it's shown is that it's more, they're trying to make it Ash's story again versus Latios and Latios' story. And it lessens the movie. Just quick aside, I love the idea of Kabutops and Aerodactyl being kind of these enemy allies attacking Ash. Throughout the Pokemon series, the fossil Pokemon are always just generally seen as violent, which is a shame because aesthetically they're so stupid cool. Kabutops is one of my favorite Pokemons. Typhlosion, I think, is probably my favorite Pokemon. There's just something there. It just makes you feel there's a bit of danger with scythes and with jaws and things. I just wish they would have hit those beats better. The defensive Altamar system I wish was a little bit more refined. The idea of like these iron bars and gates just randomly sticking up out of nowhere to block people in, being able to control the tidal waves and things of that nature, I don't think really is set up or explained very well. It just kind of seems like the DMA is able to do whatever it wants to do and whatever it can do to harm people. It's not very much of a defense mechanism, I guess, as much as I was hoping it would be. It just seems more of a prison mechanism. I understand that they're using it inappropriately, but the fact that it's just not explained at all. It's just kind of thrown in there. Now they have complete control. I think that the DMA system could potentially be... There's got to be a way to fit that more into the theme of sacrifice versus greed, but I just didn't see it. So Act 2, yeah, I'm going to keep it at C tier, if I'm honest. When you guys watch it, when you guys inevitably watch this movie, I think you'll understand what I'm saying is that they're almost doing the best that they can not to let the good parts of the story to come through. They seem to just kind of meander around the really cool parts of the theme. And when we get to those themes, they're really good moments, but I wish they would have nailed them down a bit more. And also Latios just going, ah, 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 throughout the whole movie, it just boils your brain down. And I'm sorry, I'm going to keep it at C tier. We'll see where it goes after this. Let's now go into Act 3. After using the tidal wave attack, the DMA short circuits and goes berserk, and with Oakley inside it. The Soul Dew turns into a dark color and it appears that Latios is getting injured more, presumably from the runaway machine. Ash and Latios are able to free everyone, including Latios, which was done by Latios bashing into the rings over and over again. With Latios no longer attached to the machine, the DMA comes to a stop, and he goes to Oakley and lets her know that it's time for them to go. Just as an aside, the movie treats this moment as the end of the film. The music feels like it's concluding, everything's kind of slowing down. Then Annie and Oakley seem to have learned a lesson, but when Annie tries to take the Soul Dew again, it shatters. The DMA starts up again, trapping the two Rocket Gang members inside, and now glows an eerie red and swings them around at what would make a NASA space cadet feel sick. We cut to outside and it reveals that all the water of Altamar is leaving as the Soul Dew is no longer keeping it there. The water congregates outside the city and converges itself into a tsunami and comes straight for Altamar. Latios and Latios rush to the impeding wave and are able to disperse it using every ounce of strength that they have. The water returns to their rightful spots. However, there is one catch. As Latios was already drained of so much of his strength by the DMA, the power he used to save the city cost him his life. What's before us now is just a remnant of Latios, who turns to this blue ethereal energy and disappears into the sky, as his father did before him. The fossil Pokemon return to their resting place at the museum as the DMA has stopped its final tirade. The heroes go and find a disheartened Latias, who points to the sky. Oh my. You couldn't have picked a worse time. What? What do you mean check the internet? That's as vague as it gets, Pokemon. What? Look up Pokemon leaks. What do you... What's this? Slackcaw and the woman... Oh, this is sick! Oh, you're sick! Why would they do that? They're slack-offs! Keep reading. Heavily implied that Slack... Oh my... Why would you release this? What do you mean to hurt me? Look up What did you do to... Typhlo... You monsters. You sick game freaks. Why would you do this? This hurts you way more than it hurts me. Oh my gosh. I'm gonna... I didn't know. I didn't know that doing this review would do that. I just wanted to make fun reviews for people to watch these weird movies that no one talks about. I didn't know Pokemon would do that. That's really freaking weird. How can you even watch these movies without that as context? That's just, why would they write that down? You know what? Pokemon's a bunch of weird, freaky people. And I cannot change that. And I cannot change that the fact that they did that. I don't even know why you would write that down. But you know what? I really enjoy these movies. I really enjoy like seeing just these weird, obscure movies that weren't really meant to go anywhere other than this fandom. Look, I'm not going to take away that this is just creepy. This is so weird. But I can't also take away the fact that I enjoy these movies and if I'm honest, they make me happy. Should Pokemon have done this? No. That's weird and gross. But I like this. I like this. I like movies. I'm not going to stop reviewing movies just because a company just can't keep it together. It does make what happens later on in this movie a little bit weirder. The heroes go and find a disheartened Latios, who points to the sky when asked, "Where is Latios?" We are then given one last sight share, as everyone is brought into what Latios sees right now, ascending further and further into the air, past the Earth, and further into space. The sight share ends with a new soul dew is given to Bianca. Latios' sacrifice has fully saved Altamar. And what a beautiful ending that would be. But in true Pokemon fashion, it doesn't end there. We see Ash, Misty, and Brock about to leave, continuing their journey. They pass by Lorenzo's workshop to say goodbye, but notice that Bianca isn't there with him. As the gang is on their way to depart, Ash spots Bianca, or Latias in disguise. They stop for her, and whoever this is gives Ash a kiss. a really weird, sketchy kiss on the cheek. That's freaking weird, Pokemon. At the bare minimum, you want at least the conversation that a Pokemon is. Is it just a kiss on the cheek? That's a fun debate. Here's the thing: they really allude to the fact that there's some sort of connection between Ash and Latias. How about this, Pokemon? Just between you and me, don't let Pokemon that could turn into people kiss people. I couldn't be simpler than that, you weird, creepy, freaky people. But you couldn't let it go. You had to let at least the conversation to happen. Here's the thing, though. I think it's genuinely Bianca because it alludes heavily in the movie. By the end of it, that she leaves her hat down. We see a shot of that. Here's the shot of the hat, the white beret. So that way there's this, at least maybe we think it's Latias, but it's probably Bianca. And she gives him a sketch, which is she's been drawing this whole time. I feel like it's clearly Bianca who gives Ash the kiss. It's just weird that you would even want the conversation to be, did Latias give Ash a kiss or did Bianca? It's creepy. It's weird. Pokemon, just stop being weird. I also don't know how this goes along with the theme of sacrifice, unless kissing Ash is just so horribly repugnant that you would see that as a hero sacrificing themselves to kiss Ash Ketchum, which, you know what, maybe, you don't see him he's 10 though, he's 10! You creepy, stop it! He's a 10-year-old kid! So weird. No wonder they didn't want me to finish this video. I just don't like the fact that, again, I think it's Bianca. The fact that we're having the conversation at all is just gross. Stop it. Oh, and before I forget, speaking of questions I don't really want the answers to, Latias at the very end of the movie is seen with two Latioses flying by with her, and that just begs the question of who's the dad, which in the last 3 minutes of the movie, they have no right to bring up that just bag of worms. It's horrifying because, as you may or may not know, Latias and Latios, you assume, I think it's even said that they're siblings. So, is there another Latios flying by? Again, I don't even like the question being inherently in the movie. The fact that I even have to ask this question feels very icky to me, especially after it doesn't flow well. It's weird. I have too many questions, and Pokemon simply doesn't want to give me the answers to this. Before we get too far into the weeds, let's just review the Pokemon movie as it is right now. So, I would say the biggest plus of this movie is that it has amazing bones. I think story-wise, it potentially has a fantastic through line of an idea. I just think that they pad it so much with other stuff, other characters, other potential ideas, that the main idea of a hero is someone who sacrifices is lost in this movie. And it really is a shame. So I would say, as far as the heart of the Pokemon movie, like, does it feel like a Pokemon movie? For sure. I would say the story itself I want to express this. There's a bit of a frustration with this movie, where once you see the bones of this movie, once you see the theme and you can put together what they were going for, it's very frustrating because it's not what you got. It just hurts because there's these moments where they just nail it. And there's these moments of, Annie and Oakley are fighting and it's gritty and it's it feels, the stakes are so high. It feels so cinematic to me. And then there's these moments where you're just walking through an alley, Latias and Latios are just screaming. There's nothing happening on screen for a big chunk of things. And you just wonder what happened. There are some moments that it just feels directionless. And when you have such a good bone structure of a story, that's moderately inexcusable. And it's really hard for me to watch this because I would have enjoyed it much more if they would have filled in the bones the right way. As far as showing the story goes, there's some parts where, like, again, there's this hope of 3D animation that will save you time and money, but when done improperly, like in this instance, it just doesn't look good. I've seen a couple examples of 3D animation working within the grounds of a 2D animation, and one of them would be Treasure Planet. Holy smokes. Sometimes you don't even know what's 3D animated and what's 2D animated because they're integrated so well together. And a part of that is because of how they deal with depth, when they do a pan or a tilt movement in the 3D space, when they're following someone, when they're doing an orbital shot, the 2D animation follows within it. And obviously, Pokemon didn't want to do that, didn't have time to do that, all of the what ifs. It just doesn't work. And especially, visually, story-wise, a tsunami thing being the manifestation of the villain at the very end does not sit well with me. If I would have reviewed this after I watched it one time without thinking about what the through line of this movie would be, what the theme of this movie was, I would have given it probably a D tier. I can't do that because I see the potential of this movie. And so I'm going to keep it in C tier. I know that's a really safe thing. There's something about it that I can't go lower than that. And also there's something about it that it refuses for me to get higher. I just can't put it up there with all the other movies that we have in B tier. So C tier it stays. It's very frustrating. I think that would be my main takeaway from this movie is that what's frustrating is that there are some great moments that are coupled with some really terrible moments in this film. And you should watch it because it's just so hard to explain to you that feeling of, it's close, but it's not close. And that's where it stands. That's Gingy Dave's review of Pokemon Heroes. Thank you guys so...